Before rebasing, the 70% increase witnessed in petrol prices triggered higher transportation costs, worsening food inflation. Now, staple foods like rice also surged by 82%, while maintaining a healthy diet costs over 113%, or probably even more, than we actually recorded in 2023. Though the rebasing exercise reduced Nigeria's inflation figures, period poverty has intensified, with sanitary pad prices rising to about 144%. Looking ahead, food production may decline further due to insecurity, supply chain disruptions, and while the Dangote Refinery offers hope, addressing weak policies and poor infrastructure remains crucial to stabilizing inflation and ensuring economic resilience. Now, the truth of the matter is that we are going to be tying all these information together with what the NBS had actually rolled out after rebasing, where we saw of course, inflation dropped by about 10%. But then, we'll be looking at it from the angle of Stanley Ikechukwu's report that looked at the price of commodities in the market, both food and non-food items, and how that is impacting, of course, the purchasing power of the people. So joining me in the studios is Stanley Ikechukwu, who is the head of operations at SBM Intelligence, to actually discuss this. Thank you so much, Stanley, for coming around.
Thank you for having me.
So before we look at your report, let's quickly get your reaction as regards the NBS reports that saw inflation figures drop by about 10% to 24%.
So usually what is used to measure this inflation is actually the consumer price index, and the NBS on their own part collects a range of household items, year on year, and do comparative, measuring analysis on it over time. But the rebase that happened, the base year was 2023, and it saw after the whole rebasing, the inflation rate dropped by almost 10%. But the question we should be asking is, when you take CPI that you use in doing this measurement, what is the real price of things in the market? As the prices of those commodities, those household items, has it also dropped? No, and the answer is no. Some of these products are still increasing, the prices are still soaring and going very high, and a lot of Nigerians cannot afford it. The reason why a lot of Nigerians are actually complaining or have another view about the drop, but without having to see the reflection in their everyday life, is that the prices still remains the same, but inflation has dropped. So the calculation somewhere, I think we need more explanation.
But what the government is saying is that this is actually a true reflection of Nigeria's economy and inflation, that what we had before, 34.7% thereabouts, was not the actual figure for the inflation, for headline inflation in Nigeria. So after the rebasing, the figure that we have, over 24%, is the actual figure which actually represents the true nature of things when we talk about headline inflation in the country. Is that is that explanation tenable to you?
I mean, a drastic drop by almost 10% should also signify that there should be a drop in the real cost of things in the market. Cost of rice is still going up. Cost of garri is still going up. Cost of transportation is still going up. Cost of rents are going up. Every other product in the market is actually going up. Nothing is coming down. So how is the inflation dropping and the real price of things are still going up?
Okay, so let's now look at your reports. In your reports, you talked about the fact that monetary policy tightening and, of course, exchange rate adjustments have not really impacted inflation or the economy. But that is actually against what the CBN governor said during the MPC meeting, where he actually praised the monetary policies of his administration as the governor of CBN and the fiscal measures of this current administration. And that is why, according to him, there's been a bit of turnaround in the figures that we've seen and the economy. So where do we place a balance now in what your report has said and what the CBN and the NBS's reports have actually revealed?
The real reflection of the state of things is when you talk to people at the lower level. There could be a reflection on paper, which is what I think is from the government side, but when you go into the market or when you talk to people and you ask them, has there been any change positively in your life or in your daily spending in the last 2 years? The answer is no. So CBN, yes, have their own ways of measuring these things, but when you come to where the reality stage is, where the real game is being played, which is the grassroots, you will notice that nothing has really changed.
So does this mean that, as at the time that the MPC continued to hike the interest rates, of course, to stem the flow of the economy at that point, does it mean that, which is actually one of the key policies anyway, do you think that that particular decision was wrong or not good for the Nigerian economy?
So the major processes to actually tame inflation is through, the monetary policy rates, and it's solely CBN's prerogative to do that, and they've done that. Yes, nobody's saying that they've done their own bits, but we're saying that some of these things also take time to reflect in real time, but you cannot put those hard policies and expect that overnight things will turn around. It could take time, and that time has not reflected in the everyday lives of Nigerians. That's what we're saying.
So basically, that policy decision was right, but we need to wait. Okay.
Exactly.
So we look at another part of your report that talked about agriculture and the fact that prices of commodities, consumables now, are not affordable. People are having to spend much, and is affecting dietary requirements for the ordinary Nigerian. Now, I'd like to have you share your concerns. What are the challenges in the agri sector that you documented?
So the challenges have always been the same over time. So I'm not saying that, or I don't want to blame it on this particular government. The challenges have been there long before now. The security challenges didn't start under this government, but it hasn't, really been a better situation under this government either. Grains have also not been passed across to farmers. They've also had flooding issues that actually affected harvesting and all of those things. Cost of transportation also is also a big impact. The removal of fuel subsidy further affected the cost of moving goods and services to the market. Another major problem is we still lack the right infrastructures, to move things around. The roads are really terrible. Even the president admitted to that the roads in Nigeria are terrible. So until we begin to fix all of these things, then we'll begin to see a change in those directions. However, there's been a reduction in fuel price, which is a good one.
I was going to go there.
Yeah, there's been a reduction in fuel price, but that reduction has not affected the cost of transportation. Cost of transportation is still high on the other side, but fuel price is dropping. So the question is why?
But that's not the government's fault.
Yeah, that's not the government's fault, but the government can actually do something around it. So we're looking at areas where, if it's possible to have, the road tickets, that the NURT and the likes collect, to be done maybe once a day, because this inputs in cost of fuel and the output from the NURT is also affecting, because at the end they pass down the cost to the commuters, and this is not helping matters, because we're seeing a reduction in fuel price, but we're not seeing a reduction in cost of transportation. So the government has done their own part. We Nigerians too, we have a problem, and we have a role to also play in that.
Okay, so let's tie this around the tax reform bills currently undergoing legislative scrutiny and stakeholders engagement. Part of the bill, or some containments in the bills, actually tell us that the Nigerian government is trying to ensure that indigents in the communities, or should I say vulnerables or low-income earners, do not have to pay tax. But then we've seen tariff hikes in the financial sector, in the cable service provider sector, subsector, and of course in the telecom sector too. So economists are saying that this might actually negate what the Nigerian government is trying to achieve, which is to ease the cost of living. How do you see it?
So we can actually circle back to what the CBN has been saying, that there's been an improvement and all of those things. But you would understand that if these taxes continue to go up, then people are not able to, carry out proper businesses. The taxes has actually affected small businesses most especially. Those are the big burden on those taxes. And the government needs to look at it properly. The issue on taxation is a very serious issue, and the government said they are doing something about it. We hope and wait to see, what the reaction or the reflection will be at the end.
All right, so finally, let's look at the issue of insecurity. It's part of the things that you mentioned, most especially in the agrarian communities. The government has come out to say severally that there have been efforts to decimate insurgency or insurgents in order to improve the quality of food production and the levels. But then it seems as though the prices are still on the high side. What do you think can be done to deal with that particular aspect of the challenge bedeviling in this sector?
We need to just tell ourselves the truth. Who and who is behind this, and the government should go after them. It's easy to do lip service and say, oh, we're fighting insecurity, but people are being kidnapped every day. Banditry is on the high in the northwest. Boko Haram and those attacks are coming back. So these things are not disappearing. We need to tell ourselves the truth and do the right things. Get the Nigerian army on their own part. I really believe that they've been doing the best within their knowledge. The government also needs to keep encouraging them, like providing them with the right weapons so that they can confront some of these challenges. But then the real sponsors of this insecurity should be found out, should be arrested and prosecuted. That is when we'll begin to see the real situation of things. And again, insecurity is as a result of low productivity. So the government also needs to do a whole lot around the economy, create more enabling environment so that businesses can thrive. This tax situation that we're talking about also, we need to see how government can, really do what they say they are doing to cut the vulnerables from paying over taxes. This would actually go a long way to help the whole insecurity situation.
Thank you so much. I'm Stanley Ikechukwu, Head of Operations at SBM Intelligence. It was nice talking to you on the show.
Thank you for having me.